Discussed about the module 1, and we have started with module 2, where we have discussed something about the MOSFET. Now today in the today's class we'll be discussing with respect to the oscillators. Followed by that we'll be having LC and crystal oscillators. Later on we'll move on to module 3, where we'll be discussing with respect to the feedback amplifiers and power amplifiers. So starting with first thing is oscillators. So in this oscillators, according to the syllabus, VT syllabus, we are having RC phase shift oscillators, Wein bridge oscillator, LC oscillator, and crystal oscillator. So these are the four types of oscillators we are having. So among this, before going on to this, let us know what is an oscillator. So oscillator is an device which is going to generate oscillation. That is in a simple way we can tell. But actually, oscillators is the one which is going to produce signal without any input signal excitation. Or oscillator is a circuit which is going to generate the output signal without any input signal excitation. That means here we are not going to give any input signal. Without giving input signal also, we are able to generate the output signal. So that is what oscillators mean. So here in the oscillator we can generate any required frequency or desired frequency we want. So for this purpose we will be using feedback. So in the feedback, basically we are having two types of feedback. One is positive feedback, other one is negative feedback. So the positive feedback will be used wherever wherever we want to increase the gain of the amplifier, and negative feedback will be used wherever we need to decrease the gain of the amplifier. As I told in oscillators, we don't have any input signal, then there is no question of reducing the gain. So when there is no input signal, we have to generate the input and we have to feed the feedback itself will be acting as an input signal. So for this purpose here in the oscillators we are going to use positive feedback, where we are going to increase the gain of the amplifier. So here in the oscillators, before going on to this oscillators, so if you are going to tell anything as an oscillator, then it should follow, it should obey some criterias. So what are those criterias? So here the criterias are, so it is the criteria is known as Barkhuizen criteria. So Barkhuizen criteria or criterion. So this has two statements in Barkhuizen criteria. The first statements of Barkhuizen criterion tells that the total phase shift. So before going into that, let me draw the block diagram of the amplifier, the oscillator circuit. This is an amplifier. This is where we get the output. This is the input we are having, and we have the feedback network, and here we give back the input. So here input is absent, there is no input. So input is the feedback itself is the input, and the type of, as it is amplifier, the type of amplifier is, as you know, that amplifier should be in CE configuration. CE configuration, and majority of the times we'll be using voltage divider bias. We'll be using voltage divider bias for amplification, because the voltage divider bias gives the maximum stability. That's why we go for voltage divider bias. And we have a feedback network, and this feedback network contains some resistors, capacitors, inductors based upon the type of oscillator. So this is the basic structure we are having. Coming back to Barkhuizen criteria, what it is going to tell, already we know that the CE configuration of an CE configured amplifier will be always giving 180-degree phase difference. So that means output and input will be having a phase shift of 180 degree. In order In order to tell or in order to get a sustained oscillation means all the signals will be having same amplitude and the phase. The total phase shift round the list, round this loop, passing through amplifier, coming back through feedback and coming back to the input. Round the loop should be equal to 360 degree or 0 degree. That is the first criterion we are having. So whenever a signal is traversing through this loop, it should possess 360 degree phase shift. So already we are having 180 degree here. If you are not going to produce 180 degree here in the feedback network, what will happen? Let us see. Let us assume we have a signal like this. Now at the initial case, we assume that it is not, feedback is not going to add on any phase difference, that is 180 degree is not getting added up, it is just going to pass the signal. So if the same signal is fed as input here, what happens? Again this amplifiers its feature is it is going to produce a 180 degree phase difference. Again it is going to invert this signal and we get this output like this. So when I get the output like this, you can see that the first signal and the second signal is having a phase difference of 180 degree and we tell this is out of phase. They are out of phase. The first and the second cycle, they are out of phase. So in order to overcome this out of phase problem, what we do is we connect resistors and capacitors in such a way in the feedback network such that it is going to give 180 degree. So now when the feedback network is going to give 180 degree, the total phase difference becomes 180 degree plus 180 degree, that is equal to 360 degree, or this can also be taken as 0 degree. So now the total phase shift around the loop is 360 degree or 0 degree. This is the first condition. Next, the second condition is A beta should be equal to 1, or we can take magnitude of A beta. What is A? A is nothing but the gain of amplifier. It is a gain of amplifier. What is beta? Beta is the feedback factor. Is a feedback factor. So beta is given by this feedback network, A is given by the gain of the amplifier. This gives A and this gives beta. So when we multiply A into beta, then I should get unity, that means 1. So we state the second statement as magnitude of product of gain of an amplifier and a feedback network or feedback factor should be equal to unity. Magnitude of product of gain of an amplifier and feedback factor is equal to unity. So if these two conditions are satisfied, then we are going to get a sustained oscillation. That is what Barkhausen criterion is. So this is very important. Based on this only all the oscillators are going to be analyzed. Now let us assume, suppose if this Barkhausen criterion is not going to satisfy, that means if A beta is greater than 1, the product of A into beta is greater than 1. So then what happens is the output whatever we'll be getting is, instead of sustained oscillation, we'll be getting growing type of oscillation. That means you can see the amplification level is keep on increasing. If A beta is less than 1, then we are going to take, we will be having decaying type oscillation. That means amplitude will be keep on decreasing. This is known as growing type oscillations. So here when A beta is greater than 1, it is going to produce growing type oscillation. If A beta is less than 1, it is going to produce decaying type oscillation. Decaying type oscillations it is going to produce. Suppose A beta is equal to 1, then it is going to produce sustained oscillation. you can see the difference. What if it is greater than 1, less than 1, equal to 1? So we have to get this. This is known as sustained oscillations. Sustained oscillations we are having. So now all the oscillators are preferred to produce sustained oscillation. So it is a must and should be followed that A beta should be equal to 1. So this is about the Bark-Penson criterion, and if it is not satisfied, what will happen? So this is the most asked question for 4 marks. Like this, the last state Bark-Penson criterion. If it is for 4 marks, you have to explain what is Bark-Penson criterion, and followed by that, what if suppose it is not satisfied, what will happen? So these are the 3 things. After this, many of us will have a doubt that when we are telling that the oscillator is not going to produce, is not going to take any input, then how it is going to produce the output? Because even though I tell output is fed as input, but at first output we should have something, right? So we should have something, then only we'll be getting the feedback. So who is going to give that something? Who's going to give that something to the feedback? That is the question now. How actually the first signal is being produced? So there should be some signal, then only you can produce, then only you can give as a feedback. When there is no signal here, then there is no question of giving a feedback. So here actually what happens is, for the oscillator I have taken a CE configured. This is an amplifier, this is a feedback network. So this is it is a voltage divider circuit, because we are using R1 R2, which is voltage divider circuit. Since we are using voltage divider circuit, to this it is called as voltage divider bias. And plus VCC, we already know this plus VCC is used in order to fix the operating point of this transistor. To keep the operating point in the active region, we will be using this plus VCC. So here there is no nothing related to the output. It is just going to fix the operating point. It is not going to help anything with respect to the generating the output signal. It is just going to make sure, or it is going to just fix the transistor in active region. Now, when this is connected in this structure, what happens is some kind of noise will be generated inside this transistor. Some noise like this, it will be generated inside this transistor. Now, this transistor, that the noise itself is given as output. Something like this, a noise is generated, and that itself is given as output, and that is a part of it will be fed as input to the feedback network. Now the duty of this feedback network is, here usually we will be using feedback network will be a combination of RC, or it will be a combination of LC, or it will be having crystal. So these are the different possible combinations we are having, and we have formula 1 divided by 2 pi RC. That means if you are going to properly choose a resistance and capacitance, you will be able to find, or you will be able to choose, or you will be able to tune the signal to a particular frequency. Okay, now the noisy signal which is fed to the feedback network, that noisy signal itself will be tuned to some particular frequency or desired frequency, and it is going to give 180-degree phase difference to that noisy signal, and it is going to be fed as input to this. Now again what happens, this is going to produce 180-degree phase difference to that, and this has already given frequency, and totally this it is giving 180 degree, this is giving 180 degree. So now what happens, the noisy signal after going around this loop for 2 or 3 times, it becomes a sinusoidal signal. This is how a noise signal which was there, a noise which was generated, a small noise that is generated inside a transistor becomes a sinusoidal signal. So this is how a signal is being generated in the oscillator. For this, the transistor of known beta, that is current gain, will be considered. And also, always you should remember one thing, even for the feedback network we define a parameter called beta, and even for the transistor we define a parameter called beta. So what is the difference between these two? So beta, when you talk with respect to transistor, is a current gain. Beta, when you talk with respect to feedback network, is a feedback factor. So it is going to tell how much amplification this feedback network is going to produce. See, always amplification means output by input. Here in this case, what is the output? The output given out by this, let us take it as VF. VF is the output of the feedback network. Then what is input to this feedback network? So here we get the V naught. No, that itself will be the V naught. So for beta, we'll be having VF by V naught. And for A, we'll have V naught by VF. VF is the input here and V naught is the output. So this is the basic working principle or generation principle of the oscillator. So now we'll move on to the different types of oscillator. So in that, the first thing what I have taken is RC phase shift oscillator. So it is known as RC phase shift oscillator because here in this case we are going to use RC pair. So here I will be using RC phase shift oscillator. In the RC phase shift oscillator, I'll be using R and C pairs. So you can observe here RC, RC, RC. Three RC pairs will be used. Each RC pairs will be producing 60-degree phase difference. And we already know that this voltage divider circuit is going to produce 180-degree phase difference. And we have taken, see, this is the output we are having. From the output only we are connected it to this RC pairs. This RC pairs are connected in such a way that each RC pair is going to produce 60-degree phase difference. So when it is going to produce 60-degree phase difference, during that time what happens is it is going to totally produce, this entire thing is going to totally produce 180-degree phase difference. This 180-degree and 180-degree from the transistor altogether, it is going to produce 360-degree phase shift. So when it is going to produce 360-degree phase shift, during that time our first Parkinson criterion will be satisfied. Parkinson criterion is satisfied. So when Parkinson criterion is satisfied, during that time we will be able to produce sustained oscillation. Here this RC phase shift oscillators are also known as ladder type oscillator. Why it is known as ladder type oscillator is because this RC, when we look into in the horizontal way, when we look in horizontal position, during that time this RC phase shift will be looking like a ladder, and it is looking like a ladder fashion, so it is known as RC phase shift ladder type oscillator. This, as I told, each RC pair are going to produce 60-degree, and you can see that to this input, this is entire thing, these three RC pairs are connected to the input and other terminal is connected to the output across the collector, and we take the output. here. So output also we are having a capacitor. This output of the capacitor is known as coupling capacitor. This coupling capacitor is used in order to filter out the unwanted signal. So why we want to filter out the unwanted signal is here our main intention is to produce a sinusoidal output. But sometimes this plus VCC might mix up with a sinusoidal signal and the output might be a combination of input, a combination of AC and DC, but our intention is to produce AC signal. So to filter out that DC signal, we are going to use this capacitor, because the capacitor is having a feature of filtering out the DC components, because capacitor acts like a open circuit for DC signal and it acts as a short circuit for the AC signal. So the DC content will be stored here only and only the AC signal will be given out. Okay. So this is about the RC phase shift oscillator. So for the RC phase shift oscillator, the formula will be 1 by 2 pi RC into root of 6 plus 4K, where K is the ratio of RC by R. K is given as ratio of RC by R. What is that RC? RC is the collector resistance and R is this resistance. See, all these resistors should match. If I take this as 1 kilo ohm, this should also be 1 kilo ohm, this should also be 1 kilo ohm. If I take 1 microfarad here, this should also be 1 microfarad, this should also be 1 microfarad. So this is how RC phase shift oscillator works. Then how much frequency this can generate? So it can generate a frequency ranging from hertz to few hundred kilohertz. It cannot generate very high frequency, nearly 80 kilohertz to 90 kilohertz. Till that range it can generate, starting from 100, starting from few hertz. So, and again there is some drawbacks here. The drawbacks in this thing is, see, we need to this RC values are designed for a particular frequency. If you are changing it for a other frequency, if you want to change it for other frequency, then you need to change this RC pairs. So for every time when you are changing the frequency, you will be keep on changing. You need to keep on changing RNC values, which is a tedious task, and also which becomes which is not comfortable to keep on changing the resistance and capacitor values always. So that's why what we are going to, that's why this RC phase shift oscillator is going to have one of the major drawbacks. And also one more drawback is that, and in all the cases this R values, C values, they have to match. If they are not matching, then again will be not able to produce sustained oscillation, because each R, this if it is 1 kilo, this should also be 1 kilo exactly. This is 1 kilo ohm and this is 1.5 kilo ohm and this is 2 kilo ohm, means then they are not matching. So this RC pair will produce some 60 degree, this RC pair will produce some 80 degree, this RC pair will produce some 70 degree. Then the total phase shift of this will not be equal to 180 degree. So again our we will be not able to produce sustained oscillation. So keeping this in mind, we need to choose the resistors exactly, which is not an easy task. So considering all these cases, the RC phase shift oscillator fails and it is having this set of drawbacks. So now the frequency of oscillation is given by F is equal to 1 divided by 2 pi RC root 6 plus 4K. If in the problem, suppose they have not given you RC value, then during that case you will be taking ratio as then you'll be taking K is equal to 0. If you are given with RC value, then you need to consider it as K. Otherwise the formula will become F is equal to 1 divided by 2 pi RC root 6. Because K will be neglected, means automatically 4 will also be neglected. Instead of root 6 plus 4K, you will just consider 1 by 2 pi RC root 6. K will be ignored. If they have given RC value in the problem, then you consider. This is about RC phase shift oscillators. Next one is Wien bridge oscillator. So one of the problem was to maintain the Parkinson first criterion. To satisfy that itself was a challenging task. So that's why we go for Wien bridge oscillator, where we are going to use two uh, the amplifier stages will be using. You can see here, this is one amplifier stage and this is the other amplifier stage. Two amplifier stages are there, and which are connected in such a fashion that the output of the first stage becomes input to the second stage. This is how the Wien bridge configuration is. It is going to have two amplifier stages. So each amplifier is going to produce 180 degree. This also it is going to produce 180 degree. And this is a coupling capacitor which is used to connect two stages. So this is known as amplifier stage, two-stage amplifiers. So stage 1, stage 2. So the output of this one will be input to the next one. After that, we'll be having the output, and output is fed to this feedback network. So this feedback network is also known as frequency selective network. So why it is called frequency selective network? Because here we are just going to tune up this RC and this RC. We just need to tune this RC values, so then we can get the desired frequency. So now we don't have any problem of maintaining 180 degree phase difference, because that 180 degree phase problem will be considered by these two stages, stage 1 and stage 2. Now let us take some output is there. Here we are having some signal. This signal we are going to feed as input to this. And now if you want to tune it, to new frequency, then correspondingly change R and C value. So based upon R and C value, you can change the frequency, and that will be fed as input to the first stage. This is going to amplify to the desired level, and that will be giving the output through the coupling capacitor. This coupling capacitor also filter out the unwanted DC signal which is given by plus VCC. There might be chances of mixing of AC DC, as I discussed in the last circuit, and the pure AC will be given as input to the next stage. And again, from the collector part, it is going to collect the signal. So again, some part of it will be fed as input, and again if you want to change the frequency, change the resistance values. So this is how Wien bridge oscillator works. So Wien bridge oscillators has two stage amplifier and frequency selective network. So this is the Wien bridge oscillator we are having. So in this what is the formula for Wien bridge oscillator? The formula for Wien bridge oscillator is F is equal to 1 divided by 2 pi root of R1 C1 into R2 C2. So 1 divided by 2 pi root of R1 C1 R2 C2 will be having. Suppose R1 R2 C1 C2 are matching. If they are matching, then what the formula is 1 divided by 2 pi root of R1 C1 R2 C2 we are having. So suppose R1 is equal to R2 is equal to R, C1 is equal to C2 is equal to C. Then the above equation becomes 1 divided by 2 pi into root of RC square get cancels, and you'll be having 1 divided by 2 pi RC. So in the problems also you should see whether R1 R2 are same, C1 C2 are same. Then you have to take this equation. If they are not equal, then you have to go with this formula. This is the frequency of oscillation for the Wien bridge oscillator. Again, here in the Wien bridge oscillator, we are able to produce frequency of a few hundred kilohertz greater than RC phase shift oscillator, and it is also more stable compared to RC phase shift oscillator. This Wien bridge oscillator can be constructed or designed in two patterns. So this is the other pattern of Wien bridge oscillator circuit, where you can see that this is one stage and this is the other stage. Two stage amplifier will be retained as it is, but we can have a bridge like structure for a frequency selective network, or for a feedback network we can have a bridge like structure. You can see it's similar to the PQRS Wheatstone bridge, which you have studied in your PU level or second in 12th. So PQRS. So the same way we are going to take four resistors which are connected in a bridge pattern. That's why the name Wien bridge oscillator. So here R1, R2, R3, R4 we are having. By properly choosing R2, C2 and R1, C1, we can choose a desired frequency. So that's why the name Wien bridge oscillator. This is a bridge structure. Since the bridge structure can be used to build this one, it is known as Wien bridge oscillator circuit. But this might be bulky. Because of its bulkiness, we usually go for this circuit where the bulkiness of this circuit oscillator is quietly reduced. So this is about Wien bridge oscillator circuit. So after the Wien bridge oscillator circuit, next we are having the LC oscillators. So those are the very important oscillators. LC oscillator. So LC oscillators. So LC oscillators are made up of tank circuit. Tank circuit means again the same thing. A circuit which is made up of LC is known as a tank circuit. So tank means L and C components are used to build that circuit. That is known as tank circuit. Inductor and capacitor will be used to build the circuit. That's why the name tank circuit. So why it is called LC oscillators? Because in the feedback part, as we have seen in RC phase shift oscillator, we are using RC, resistors and capacitors. Here instead of RC, we'll use LC. The feedback network, entire thing, whatever we are having, the entire thing when we see with respect to RC phase shift, this voltage divider bias circuit or voltage divider bias amplifier will be as it is. The only change is this feedback network, whatever we are having, this feedback network will be replaced with L and C. So how it is going to be? So amplifier stage, and just for simplification, instead of drawing it again and again, I just take it as a block diagram. So this is a voltage divider bias circuit amplifier. So feedback, this is Vi, this is V0. So here we'll be having inductors and we'll have capacitors, and this will be fed as input. So you can see L1, L2, C. So two inductors and one capacitor will be connected. So if your connection is two inductor and one capacitance, then it is known as Hartley oscillator. Hartley oscillator. If you are having, instead of two inductors, if you are having two capacitor and one inductor, so in the place of this inductor you have capacitor, here you have capacitor, and here you have inductor, then you will call it as Colpitts oscillator, Hartley oscillator or Colpitts oscillator. So Hartley comes means you'll have two inductor and one capacitor. Colpitts comes means two capacitor and one inductor. Okay, Colpitts C comes no two capacitor, Hartley two inductors. can just remember like this. So now coming to this, first we will discuss the Hartley oscillator. Hartley oscillator. So what is this Hartley oscillator? So here we'll have plus VCC, this is the ground, this is the capacitor having, this is RC, RE, R1, R2. This is the feedback part. So here in the feedback part, Hartley oscillator will have two inductors like this and one capacitor will be having, and these two inductors, between this we are going to ground, and this is the capacitor. Now before going on to this thing, let us know how this LC works, because the same LC will be using in class C power amplifiers also. So I'll just brief it out how it works, or how a tank circuit works. So in the tank circuit I have taken one inductor and one capacitor I have considered. So in here, when I consider one inductor and one capacitor, so how it is going to work is, let us assume I'm giving some supply here, supply to this. So here either of this will be charging at once. That means if the inductor is going to store, or it is getting charged, we will not call it as charge, it gets energized, because it stores the energy in the form of magnetic field. So that's why we will not tell it is the charging, inductor is charging, because it cannot store the energy in the form of charges, it stores the energy in the form of magnetic field. So now this inductor coil, it is going to store the magnetic field, in the energy in the form of magnetic field, and it is going to reach to the peak value of the energy. When it reaches to the peak value of the energy, the magnetic field destructs itself, and that magnetic field, because the energy of that magnetic field starts flowing towards the capacitor. That energy starts storing in this capacitor. So that means when, and you know that where the capacitor will be storing the energy in the form of charges or electric field. So now this magnetic field is converted to electric field, and the capacitor is going to store the energy in the form of charges. So this capacitor will charge to its peak value. Again, when this capacitor charges to the peak value, the inductor goes to zero energy level. Again when it and again we know the feature of capacitor, that when it reaches to the peak value, automatically it discharges. When it discharges, again this inductor is going to charge to the peak value. This charging and discharging process will be keep on continuing. Because of this charging and discharging process, continuous charging and discharging process, we will be able to produce phase difference and frequency. So this concept, it is nothing but resonant circuits, because LC circuits are known as resonant circuits, and we are going to produce a resonant frequency. So this concept is applied over here, and we are going to produce a desired frequency. The same thing happens here, the output will be fed here, and because of the charging and discharging process of L and C, we will be able to produce a particular change in phase and frequency, and it will be fed as input, and this process will be keep on continuing. Here the formula for the Hartley oscillator is 1 divided by 2 pi root LC. This is the formula. Since For L1 and L2, we have the formula. Actually, it is L equivalent. L equivalent is equal to L1 plus L2. L1 plus L2. And many have this confusion whether these inductors are in series or parallel, because when you see this formula, it looks like this is the formula related to, if because inductor and resistance have same formulas. So R1 R2, this is written for series resistance. So here you are having L1 L2, L1 plus L2. So here when you compare with the series resistance formula, they both appear to be same. But please remember that inductors are neither series nor parallel. See, if you are going to tell them are in series, then you have a ground here. Then you have a ground here, so they cannot be series. Series connection means you should not have anything here. Suppose you want to tell them are in parallel, then for parallel combination, you know that both the terminals should connect each other. Here, see here, resistance and this capacitance, resistance and capacitance, I can tell parallel because the resistance terminal and capacitor terminal is going to connect, and the resistance and capacitor terminal are going to connect. Both sides it is going to get connected. But here, this is connected somewhere, this is connected somewhere, and only one point is connected to ground. So inductors are neither series nor parallel, but derivation of this the equivalent inductance, it is going to give out this formula which looks like series inductor formula, but actually by mathematical equation looks same, but they are not in series nor in parallel also. Okay. So by finding out L1 plus L2, we will be able to produce the required frequency. Now the same way, I'll move on to Colpitts. Colpitts oscillator. So in the Colpitts oscillator, so everything will remain same. The only change is the feedback network. So that's why I'm just going to change that. So Colpitts oscillator, here we'll be having two capacitors which will be connected and an inductor which will be connected parallel to it. Inductor C1, C2, and we have a ground. Now the formula for this and working is same. The same whatever I explained here, the same thing will be applied here also. So it is going to produce 180-degree phase shift, and this is going to produce 180-degree phase shift, and this is going to tune to the particular frequency. By properly choosing inductor and capacitor value, we will be able to choose some desired frequency. After that, we can get desired output here, V0. For this, the formula is F is equal to 1 divided by 2 pi root L C equivalent. C equivalent. C equivalent is the equivalent capacitance of C1 and C2. So formula, it gives C equivalent is equal to C1 C2 by C1 plus C2. Again, on saying this one, so this is the formula for series capacitance. Series capacitance. For series capacitance, we have this formula C1 C2 by C1 plus C2. But here also the capacitance are not in series. Just the equation looks same, but doesn't mean that the capacitors are series. So that will not work out here. Just we are telling they are neither parallel nor series. And inductor, whatever inductor value we have. So by properly designing the inductor and capacitor values, we can get a desired frequency. Okay. So this is about the Colpitts oscillator. After Colpitts oscillator, the next one is crystal oscillator. So for all oscillators, we will be using voltage divider circuit only. Amplifier will not change. The circuit remains same. Even in your practicals also, we'll be using same voltage divider by circuit. Design will be same for all oscillators. but only the feedback network will be changing. So next thing is the crystal oscillator. So before going on to the crystal oscillator, I would like to tell something about crystals. What is a crystal? Crystal, it is it's a component which is easily available in nature in the form of in different forms. Some of the crystals we are having are the quartz crystal we have, and we have rock chill salt. We have tourmaline. So these are some of the crystals which are available in the nature. See, even though we are having different forms of crystals which are available in the nature, but in the majority of our application or almost all, we'll be using quartz crystal. Why we use quartz crystal? Why? Because when you are going to use a crystal, it is going to follow a principle called piezoelectric effect. This is the phenomenon which is it is going to follow. What is this phenomenon? So piezoelectric effect. This phenomenon tells that when you are going to apply a mechanical stress to a crystal, it starts giving electrical signal. It starts giving electrical signal because when you are going to give a mechanical stress, it is going to vibrate. Because of that, electrical signals are produced. And the same way, converse, when you give an electrical signal to this crystal, again it is going to vibrate, which gives out vibration. That means for mechanical pressure stress, it gives electrical signal, and for electrical signal, it gives mechanical vibration. So this kind of behavior is seen in quartz. So considering that we are seeing to this phenomenon, we are going to use this crystal for oscillators, and majority of the places, even in our microcontroller processor, wherever we want to generate a clock signal, we'll tell a quartz or crystal clock signal. In even the microcontroller, we'll be using crystal to generate the clock signals. Now, why only quartz? Why not rock chili or tourmaline? See, when you are going to talk with respect to the crystal, it should not be very hard. At the same time, it should not be very delicate. When you take with respect to rock chill salt, it is very hard, which is difficult to vibrate. But when you take with respect to tourmaline, it is very soft, which is delicate, very delicate to handle. So because of that, the limitations, we go for quartz crystal. So how we are going to use this quartz crystal is, we are going to just connect this quartz in the place of the feedback network. We are going to connect this quartz crystal. This is the symbolic representation of quartz crystal. So here this is a crystal, and this indicates the metallic sheet covering of this crystal. So this metallic sheet covering is made to protect the crystal. Inside that, it will be having a crystal. So it will be having a steel cap. Inside that, the crystal will be produced, or crystal will be present. So now here in this case, we'll be having we'll be comparing this to RLC. This crystal will be compared to RLC. Let us look in how it works. RLC: resistor, inductor, capacitor. This is the equivalent circuit for crystal, and since it contains this metallic cap that acts as a capacitor, because it is a metallic, two metallic plates are connected, means always you know that capacitor is having two metallic plates, the same thing, and metallic plate is across this crystal. That's why this is known as mounting capacitance. This is RLC. This indicates the crystal, and this Cm is this capacitor and this capacitor. Okay, so this is the crystal. Now crystal, now here what we do is we are going to consider a crystal of some desired frequency. If I'm going to consider a crystal which is going to have 2 megahertz, then you just connect an amplifier and it will be producing 2 megahertz signal at the output. 2 megahertz signal will be produced at the output. So this is how crystal works. Suppose if you are going to connect 6 megahertz crystal, it will be printed on the crystal itself. When you buy a crystal, no, it will be printed on that only. If you connect it, automatically when an electrical signal, when a signal is passed through this, because of the piezoelectric effect, it is going to produce a frequency of 6 megahertz. If you are using 6 megahertz, if you are using 10 megahertz, it is going to produce 10 megahertz, like that, and the same process will happen. So it is going to produce 180 degree, this is going to produce 180 degree, and Parkinson criterion is satisfied, and we are going to get the output signal. And the formula for this one is also f is equal to 1 divided by 2 pi into root LC. Will be same formula we are going to consider. For crystal also, they will tell the value is L is this much, C is this much, and you can substitute it. Because the equivalent circuit of this crystal is RLC, so we solve the problem in terms of L and C only. But a crystal is obtained in the single piece will be obtained. It will be like a metallic sheet. I think you have seen in the lab. It will be like this. So it will be having a steel cap. Inside that, it will be having crystal. It will be obtained like this, but while solving we are going to consider its characteristic behavior. Its characteristic behavior is resistance, inductor, capacitance. So this is about the crystal oscillator. So now that completes the module 2. So now moving on to the module 3. So the module 3, for this module 3, I'd like to tell about feedback. Before going on to power amplifier, I tell feedback amplifiers. So in the feedback amplifier, as we have already discussed, there is positive feedback and negative feedback. There are 4 types of connection that is possible. So the 4 different types of connections are voltage shunt feedback, voltage series feedback, current shunt feedback, current series feedback. So these are the four types of feedback that are possible. So on what basis we are going to call them as voltage series feedback, voltage shunt feedback, current series feedback is based upon how you are going to draw the output, whether you are going to draw the output in terms of current or in terms of voltage. See, always remember one thing, if you are drawing, because you know that for an feedback circuit, so we generalize it as an amplifier. This is a sampling network, this is a mixing network, this is a feedback network. So sampling network, in the sampling network we are going to sample, that means we take some sample of it and we are going to give input. In the mixing network we are going to mix up. Okay. So now here in this part we are having a voltage amplifier, that means it is going to take an input in terms of voltage and it is going to give the output in terms of voltage. So now when you are taking the output parallelly like this, see, you can see voltage is taken parallelly, shunt connection is there. If you take the output parallelly like this, then the sampling is known as voltage sampling. And after taking that sample, you are going to feed the input in series mode. You can see that this is connected like this and this is connected directly like this. So you are connecting it in series. You see here you are taking it in parallel. If you are taking in parallel means it will be connected like this. If you are taking in series means it will be connected like this. We can see it is taken in parallel and it is taken in given in series. So taken in parallel means obviously should be voltage only, because voltage is always drawn parallelly, current is always drawn in series. So here we are drawing the voltage in parallel, that's why the output is taken in parallel, so obviously it will be voltage only. So that voltage is drawn and it is going to be fed in series, that's why the name voltage series feedback. Voltage amplifier with voltage series feedback, because we are using a voltage amplifier and we are taking voltage. Why it is voltage? Because we are taking it parallelly. So voltage series, we are feeding it in series. That's why voltage series feedback. Next, next one is transconductance amplifier. So why it is called transconductance amplifier? We'll look in. So here I have taken an example of current series feedback. See here you can see output is drawn in series. So when you are drawing the output in series or sampling the output in series, then it should be current. You should draw current only. You cannot draw output the voltage in series. You should for sampling you should draw only the current should be sampled and fed as input, and that should be fed in series to the input of this amplifier. So current is taken and you can see that we are going to mix the voltage. So current is drawn in terms of current, but while mixing we are mixing it in terms of voltage. Why? Because we have assumed a voltage source. When you are taking a voltage source, obviously you have to mix up voltage only here. See here we are going to take, it is a voltage source, so we are taking voltage and we are mixing voltage in series only. See drawing is in parallel but mixing is in series. Here while drawing you should take in series only. So current is taken and we are going to give out corresponding voltage and we are going to mix that to the in series. So current is drawn, so current, in what way we are giving the feedback? We are giving the feedback in series, that's why current series feedback. Next, current amplifier and transconductance. Why it is called transconductance? Because amplifier means what? Output by input. What is the output here? We are taken the output in terms of I naught. What is the input here? Vi. I by V. I by V means conductance. That's why transconductance amplifier. Here voltage amplifier. Why? Because output was also voltage, input was also voltage. V naught by Vi. Here it is I naught by Vi. Next, current sampling. Next, current shunt feedback. So here current comes means you should draw in series. Shunt means you should mix in parallel. And here we are mixing it in parallel, and why we call it as a current shunt feedback? Because, and why we are mixing it in this way? Because, and here we are giving current only, because the source assumed is current only. Current source is assumed and we are giving current in parallel. So current is drawn in series, fed in parallel. Current shunt feedback. Here also you can see current source, and this is called current amplifier because output is also current and input is given also in terms of current. Because we can represent or we can consider the output whether in terms of voltage or in terms of current. Next, trans resistance amplifier. Here the output is the voltage. We are drawing output because we are taking parallel. When you take parallel, remember that it is voltage sampling. So voltage is drawn and we are feeding it parallelly. But what is the source here? Series. So obviously we have to give it in series only. Sorry, parallelly, and we have to give current only. If you are having current source, you have to give it current only. If it is voltage source, we have to give voltage only. So since it is current source, we have to convert the sampled voltage to current, and equivalent current we have to give it here, and it is given in parallel. So that's why voltage shunt feedback. Again, why it is called trans resistance? Because output is voltage, input is given in terms of current. V by I. V by I is resistance. That's why the name trans resistance. So next, this is about the feedback amplifier. So after this, the next part is I'll be dealing with the amplifiers, the power amplifiers. So in the power amplifiers, basically these are the different ways we can classify. So primary classification is based upon whether it's an audio amplifier or radio amplifier. Where do we use this power amplifier is wherever we want very high level of amplification, we use power amplifiers, like in loudspeakers or in the places wherever we want very high power. So during that time, we cannot use a normal transistor, a normal small signal BJT transistor. Then we have to use power amplifiers only, where we'll be using power transistors. So what is this difference between the power transistors and a normal transistor? The difference between power transistor and normal transistor is the power transistors are given with a heat sinks. That means since it is going to deal with higher power levels, the amount of heat generated will be more, and it is designed in such a way that it will be absorbing the excessive heat will be absorbed by the heat sinks. So the size of the power transistors will be more compared to the size of the normal BJT transistors which we have seen in our lab. Okay, so audio amplifier, radio amplifier. So whether it depends upon the application, what kind of application you are looking in for. Next is we are going to we are going to use according to the mode of operation. So mode of operation, we are having five types: class A, class B, class AB, class C, class D. These are the different types of operations we are having. The classes we are having: class A, class B, class AB, class C, class D. So this modes are based upon the position of the operating point in VI characteristics. Based on that, we are going to classify AB, A, B, AB, C, D. Next, based upon the driving output, so how we are going to drive this. So whether it's a single-ended, double-ended, push-pull, complementary, quasi-symmetry. So single-ended means it will be having a single transistor. Double-ended means it will be having two transistors. Complementary means it will be one will be NPN, other one will be PNP. Quasi-symmetry push-pull means it will be using two transistors of same type, both will be NPN or both will be PNP. So this is how we are going to take up the classifications. So now let us see one by one in a brief. So the power amplifier classification, the class A. So in the class A, the transistor conducts for the whole cycle of the sinusoidal input signal. It is going to conduct for the full cycle. The output for a class A amplifier will be like this. That means it is going to conduct for the full cycle. Why? Because the operating point of class A amplifier will be exactly at the center of the VI characteristics. Center of the VI characteristics means if you are going to take, if I take this V, the VI characteristics we are taking, then the operating point will be somewhere here, because we know that already this region is known as active region. This region is known as cutoff region. This region is known as saturation region. So based upon the position of this operating point, we are going to decide whether it is going to give a full cycle or a half cycle or 75% of the cycle. Okay. So power amplifier classification in class A amplifier, since the operating point is at the active region, it is going to produce full cycle. In class B, the transistor conducts for only one half cycle. So we will be having only half of the cycle. In class AB, we will tell the output will be for 180 degree. Here we'll tell the output will be for 360 degree because it starts from 0 and it will end at 360 degree. But here in class B, it is going to have only 180 degree for complete input signal. It is going to give only half of the output. So class B is going to produce only half of the signal. It is going to operate from 0 to 180 degree. When coming to class AB, we are having from 0 to greater than 180 degree but lesser than 360 degree. It is greater than 180 degree, lesser than 360 degree, and some part of the signal will be lost. Coming to class C, this class C will be lesser than 180 degree. The signal will be lesser than 180 degree. So this class C amplifier, so we are going to use a resonant circuit to this class C amplifier, and we are going to use. This is the classification. There is one more thing, class B amplifier, which is a digital amplifier, where we will be dealing only with the digital signal 1 0 like that. So mainly with respect to the operating point, we are going to have AB, C, AB. These are the power amplifiers. So in the uh, in this power amplifiers, we are going to have first thing is class A amplifier. In the class A amplifier, we are having two types: series fed class A amplifier and transformer coupled class A amplifier. So series fed class A amplifier means, here why it is called series fed class A amplifier, because the collector resistance and load resistance will be same. So you can see that instead of RC I have written RL. That indicates the collector and load resistance both are same. So in the place of collector resistance, we are having load resistance. That's why the name series fed class A amplifier. The load is in series with the collector. That's why series fed class A amplifier. Okay. Even though this class A amplifier is going to produce a complete signal, but series fed class A amplifier are having very less efficiency. Practically we'll be having only 10 to 15% efficiency. Theoretically we can prove it 25%, but practically it is very lesser efficiency. We are having with class A power amplifier, that is series fed class A amplifier. After this we are having one more thing, transformer coupled class A amplifier. In the transformer coupled class A amplifier, what is the changes? Instead of the load being directly connected in the place of collector resistance, we will be having in the place of collector resistance, we are going to connect a we are going to connect a transformer. We are going to connect a transformer, and we are going to connect the load to the secondary of this transformer. Okay. So after connecting, the loudspeaker is nothing but the load. The load is connected to the secondary of the transformer. The primary of the transformer will be connected to the transistor. Primary is connected to the transistor, you can see, and this is voltage divider bias as usual. In the place of RC, we have primary of the transformer, and the secondary of the transformer will be connected to the loudspeaker. Okay, so this is a step down transformer we are going to use. This kind of connection is known as transformer coupled class A power amplifier. This also has a lesser efficiency because we are using transformer coupled here. This is also having lesser efficiency. Next is class B power amplifier. In the class B power amplifier, we are having two things: symmetry push-pull class B amplifier and complementary symmetry push-pull amplifier. So symmetry push-pull amplifier means, here we will be using both NPN or both PNP we are going to use, and also we are going to use two transformer, one at the beginning, other one at the secondary other part. So this is known as a phase splitting transformer. This is known as coupling transformer. So phase splitting transformer, what it is going to do is, so the given input signal will be split into two parts, or it is going to, we can tell it is going to change the phase between the two transistors. So you can see this signal is given in this form. For this transistor, it is given in the reverse form. So it is going to split the phases and it is going to give. So the positive phase is given to this one. During that time, negative phase will be given. When negative phase is given to this, positive phase will be given. So this is going to produce one half cycle, this is going to produce the next half cycle, and because of this transformer coupling, what happens, it is again going to change the phase and you will be able to produce this kind of signal. And this transformer is going to, why it is called push pull, because the signal between the signal at the two ends of the signal, it will be pushed and pulled to the either ends. So when you are going to push and pull this ends to maximum extent, that is but to the positive extreme and negative extreme, what happens, it's the amplitude increases. So because of that, you'll be having a higher amplitude signal. So the efficiency will be 81% for class B power amplifier. And the other one is complementary symmetry push pull amplifier. In the complementary symmetry push pull amplifier, we'll be not using any transformers. Instead of that, we'll be using, if one is NPN, other one is PNP. So automatically when a signal is given, so this is going to operate, if it is NPN, this is going to operate for positive phase, this is going to operate for negative phase. Finally, when it is operating, it is going to give positive signal. When it is going to operate, it is going to give negative signal. And why we are giving plus VCC1, VCC2? Because for PNP we need to give negative VCC, minus VCC, and for NPN we have to give positive VCC. So this, for this one supply we need to give, for this one we need to give other negative supply. And this is a coupling capacitor, and in this we will be not using any transformers. So this is how the complementary symmetry push pull class B amplifier looks. And here the efficiency of this class B push pull amplifier and complementary and symmetry push pull, for both efficiency is same. Both are having 80%, 81% efficiency. Both will be having same efficiency, but here it will be not using transformer, there it will be using transformer. That is the difference we are having. But this class B amplifier are going to show some distortion, so which is known as crossover distortion. So what is this crossover distortion? Since we are using two transistor, what happens is, whenever an input signal is given, to in order to forward bias this transistor, at least the input signal should be greater than VBE. Only when input signal is greater than VBE of this signal, then only it switches on. So until VBE becomes greater than VBE of this transistor, the output will be shown as 0. So what is VBE? VBE is based emitter drop voltage. So usually for a silicon transistor it will be 0.7, for germanium transistor it will be 0.3. So it depends upon what type of transistor you have used. So you can see we are using two transistors, obviously plus VBE and minus VBE we are having. So whenever positive half cycle, whenever the input becomes greater than plus VBE, then only you'll be getting the output. Whenever the for the other during negative half cycle, whenever it crosses minus VBE, input crosses minus VBE, then only you will be having output. Until that, so you can see during this phase or during this time, it will be 0 only. This is known as crossover distortion. So when you see the output of class B amplifier, you'll be getting the output like this, and this is known as crossover distortion. In order to eliminate this crossover distortion, we go for class AB power amplifiers, where in class AB power amplifiers we'll be using two diodes 0.7 0.7. So what it is going to do here, this transistor where this diodes 0.7 0.7 volt diodes whatever we are using. So whenever input signal is being given, automatically these diodes are going to bias, and these diodes are connected in such a way that this VBE will be cancelled out with respect to this 0.7 and 0.7. They get cancelled out such that the input will be passed through this, and the transistor will operate from 0.1 volt instead of operating it from 0.8 volt. It operates from 0.1 volt only. So we are connecting 0.7 across this, so it is parallel, no? Here also 0.7 across this, parallel to this. So totally it is going to produce 1.4 volt. So now it is going to it's just like an add-on. This 0.7 is an add-on to the input voltage. Because of that, this we can overcome the base to emitter voltage drop, and we'll be able to produce the complete output signal from starting from 0, 0.1, 0.2 will be visible. Again, why we are using two transistors here is, again we know that class AB power amplifier are able to produce only the 75% of the signal, or it can produce the signal greater than 180 degree but lesser than 360 degree. So that's why in order to overcome that problem, we'll be using two transistors such that we'll be able to produce complete signal. This is class AB power amplifier. And the last one is class C power amplifier, where in the class C power amplifier we'll be using, since we know that class C power amplifier output is lesser than 180 degree. So in order to get a complete signal, what we do is we are going to connect a resonant circuit, and across that the output is drawn. So resonant circuit is LNC circuit, the one what we explained in the oscillator, LNC circuit. So here whenever an input signal is given, what happens is, again the inductor is going to charge first. It is going to get energized, and it is going to store the energy in the form of magnetic field. Once this is stored to the maximum extent, after that it is going to discharge, and the capacitor will start charging, and again the capacitor charges to the peak value, and once the capacitor is going to charge to the peak value, after that it is going to discharge, and the same energy is used to energize this magnetic field. This process of charging, discharging, charging, discharging will be continuing. Because of this process, now the half signal which was given to this becomes a full sinusoidal signal. So this will be producing a full sinusoidal signal at the output. So this is how class C power amplifier works. So this is about the power amplifier. So it is just have a comparison here how actually the amplifier classes. You can see class A, we have a complete sinusoidal signal. That means it is going to give full signal. It is going to give 360 degree signal. When you take class AB, it can give a signal greater than 180 degree but lesser than 360 degree. But when you take class B, it will be giving only 180 degree output. It is just giving 180 degree output. But when you take class C, it is going to give even lesser than 90 degree signal, or equal to 90 degree signal. But when you take class D, it is completely digital amplifier. So that's why we take phase differences, conduction angle as 0 degree, because it is a it will be giving out in output in the form of a square wave. But when you see the efficiency, you can see that class A amplifier is going to give around 25%, class AB 50%, class B is around 75 to 80%, class C is greater than 75%. It is approximately 90% it will give. But when you take class D amplifier, we tell 100% efficiency theoretically, but at least 98-99% of the efficiency is produced with respect to the class D power amplifier. So this is about the module 2. So module 3. So this is what the sessions what I took since the last week. So I have covered the module 2, module 1, 2, 3, which are important with respect to the examinations.
Thank you for the session, sir. And I hope that the students will make use of it for their exams.
Okay, good. Thank you.